We are talking about communicating your boundaries, so speaking up for yourself. How do you speak up for yourself? The things that you should be mindful of. And so this is what class number 10. So I can bet, I got faith in y'all. We've been meeting for 10 weeks. I feel like y'all know most of, if not everything, all of my notes right here. So I'm actually not going to give you guys my notes. I'm going to ask you guys the questions, and for the ones that you guys don't come up with, I'll fill them in for you. But because I know that you guys have been listening and you have been doing the work and really self-reflecting, I have faith that you guys know the answers already. My usual, right? This has to be a safe space, so please be respectful of what people share. The things we talk about in this class, they can be sensitive in nature, and that's my number one priority, is making sure that everybody feels like this is a safe space for them to share. If you are just tuning in for the first time, welcome. This is Emotional Intelligence 101. I am your professor/coach, Erin. By trade, I am an attorney, and I am attorney turned emotional intelligence coach. And so using my background as an attorney in terms of like the conflict resolution skills, my training in emotional intelligence, and just my own personal journey, I help women and sometimes their partners, right, raise their emotional intelligence so that they can learn how to improve their communication, their connection, and conflict resolution. Although most of the things that I talk about in the context of romantic relationships. This stuff works for any relationship, right? There will be a class. A lot of you guys said do a class on like parenting and emotional intelligence. So I'm definitely going to do a class on parenting. So even though I may talk about it in the context of romantic relationship, it works for any relationship that you have. So even if you're single, it's okay. You can still learn from this class. Like I said, all you got to do is show up, do the work, be honest with yourself. Y'all know that's another one of my rules, because you're not going to grow unless you're honest. My therapist always says you can't change anything that you're not aware of. And if you keep lying to yourself, there's no way that you aren't going to be able to identify your areas of growth. Okay. Other rules, I always say no projecting. You can share your experience, but don't project your experience on other people, right? We talked about empathy, so you're making sure that you are keeping an open mind and taking time to understand whoever is sharing. And then the last thing is no generalizing. So no all men this, all women that. If it has been your experience, you can talk about it like that, but don't assume that your experience is common for everybody else. Last thing, I am not a therapist. I am a coach. The difference, therapy looks backwards to figure out how you got here. So how your upbringing contributed to your attitude, the way that you recognize or handle your emotions or don't. The way that you communicate, the way that you love, all of those things is therapy. Coaching is forward looking. So you have a goal of, you want to stop having the same argument over and over with your partner. You want to improve communication with your partner. Coaching is, okay, this is what we keep doing. We want to make this better. How do I get you there? So that's the difference. And I know sometimes people get confused with all of that, but those are the rules. Welcome to class. If you guys joined late, the only other thing that I mentioned, I asked if anybody knows a virtual assistant. If you are a virtual assistant, if you have one, I need one. I had to let my last one go, and I am struggling. So today we are talking about communication. How do you communicate your boundaries, like without feeling guilty? How do you speak up for yourself? So if you know anybody else that needs to hear this, go ahead and share this live. I know I did not get you guys the reflection question this week, but do I have it here? Yeah, we'll discuss it in class. Can you please send me, if you are a virtual assistant, can you send me an email at info@erinfdarton.com? Or send me a DM and I can send you the email, please, because I desperately need help. I can't keep doing this by myself. So, like I said earlier, I do have my notes here, and community members, you guys already have this, but I am convinced that you guys know the answers, right? You are the expert of you. So I'm not even going to give you the notes I have. I'm going to ask you guys the questions. So this would be more like a coaching session. And then if you guys miss anything, of course, I'll fill in the gaps from there. What does a virtual assistant entail? So there are a couple of things that I need help with. So it's more about the day-to-day stuff for me. So like sending out the emails that I need to be sent out. So like how I do have a weekly newsletter. So like how I send out the replays. So getting the replays out, getting them uploaded to YouTube. That's a big one. And then I am actually getting ready to roll out a summer campaign. So in the membership community this summer, we're going to have a self-aware summer. And so this summer is going to be all about learning more about yourself, learning about your areas of growth, how you can grow, how you can be a better person, and then also a better mom, a better sister, a better dad, a better partner. And so getting stuff, help me setting up stuff with that. And so whether it's setting up the email sequence, email, social media management, right? I have not been posting on social media because I just don't have the capacity. I have the content, but so also managing social media. What else? I think that's most of it. So like my email newsletter that goes out weekly, social media management, helping set up for the self-aware summer. Yeah, I think that's most of it. I can actually get you guys a job description if you guys send me the an email. Thanks, girl. My lashes and on my brows. Thanks. So we are talking about communication, and how many of you feel like you have a hard time speaking up for yourself? And I think that can look like a number of ways. Either it could mean that you are hesitant to speak up, meaning like you hold on to things or you tell yourself that it's not worth it. Or it can also look like when you do speak up, it is not well received. So maybe it's your tone, maybe it's how you say things, maybe it's you're blunt, but something about your delivery is not received well. So how many of you feel like you have, a hard time communicating your needs, your boundaries, all of those? You need to work on being assertive, okay? It's your tone. You want to be liked, okay? Yeah, you do at times. So when you say you do at times, Nate, is it certain people, certain situations? Like, when do you have a hard time speaking up? Okay, positive outbreak. Thanks. Send me a message. What y'all put? Because they center in your comments. I can't see everything there. You stay quiet because you fear how the other person will react, especially if it's family. Okay. Men. Okay. Specifically, you have an issue speaking up with. Your delivery is brutally honest. Okay. Or blunt, you said. Got it. Okay. So here's the first question. Why do we struggle to communicate our needs? Let's start there. That's the first question. I do have, my tips here, but I want you guys to tell me if you feel like you struggle to communicate your needs, why is that? You have a hard time speaking because of trauma. Can you give me a little bit more, like, what is it? Did your trauma make you feel like you can't communicate? Did your trauma, like, what is it specifically? Like, what's the issue? You fear being misunderstood, okay? You feel like people won't deliver. So you mean like if you ask somebody to do something, they won't hold up their end? Your needs have never been met. Anything else? What about, hey, Cashmere? What about you guys over here? Why do you feel like you struggle to communicate your needs? And so I think you guys have, there might be a couple that you guys didn't hit. You fear you don't like confrontation. Natalie, what do you feel like, what part of confrontation don't you like? You've learned that your feelings don't always match what's going on. Can you give me more, Ty? What do you mean they don't match? And are you talking about feelings, meaning your interpretation of it, or your actual emotions? Remember, we talked about the difference between feelings versus emotions. And so, Ty, when you say your feelings don't match the situation, are you talking about your interpretation of what happened, or your feeling, your actual emotions? Fear and disappointment. So is it that fear and disappointment that your needs won't be met? That you can't, a can of worms. Okay. All right. So you guys, you mentioned most of the things I have here. This, I don't think you guys mentioned this first one. Some people have a fear of being a burden or sounding needy. Another reason you may struggle to communicate your needs is you feel guilty for even having needs. And I found this is most common when it comes to moms, because moms are conditioned to put themselves last and can take care of everybody else. And so you have a harder time of saying, I need time for myself. I need space. I just need to take a longer shower. I need some me time. I need a, okay. That one is very common. Y'all agree? Yep. Guilt around having, but you have to understand that if you don't take care of yourself, I know you guys have heard it, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. And you can't give somebody something that you don't have. And I think I used to feel guilty for not showing up for people. And I'm like, if I don't have it, I don't have it. I can't give you something. You can't ask me for $1,000 and I only got $5. Yeah. The next one, you guys mentioned this one, avoidance of conflict. Somebody mentioned that they don't like conflict, and fear of rejection. And so I would say fear of rejection is also, I would say, being misunderstood. I would kind of put those two together. So for those of you that do not like confrontation, so I am also non-confrontational. However, you have to understand that conflict is inevitable. Right? You are going to disagree. Like, there is nobody in this earth that you are ever going to agree about every little thing. Right? It's a natural part of being alive. But what's important is how you handle the conflict. Right? And so now, if you're saying that you don't like confrontation because you don't like arguing, you don't like the yelling and the screaming, cool. Because I don't argue. Like, that's one of the first things I tell guys when I don't argue. We can talk about it. Muhammad, I'm here. Who trying to join my live? No thanks. We can talk about it. You can tell me what I did that you dislike. I could share but arguing, are you going to yell at me? Oh, I probably die if somebody yelled at me or cussed at me. Right? And so that can be a boundary of yours, right? But you need to communicate that. I don't do the yelling and screaming, and definitely not the physical, right? We need to, like, what do we tell kids when they crying? Use your words. Yeah, we can use our words. All right. So for those of you that fear confrontation, and that's not to say that it is going to be comfortable, right? Because having difficult conversations is not a comfortable feeling. Being told that, something you did is wrong or that you hurt your partner, that is not something that is comfortable. But you got to learn to live with that discomfort, right? At least in that moment. So you said you hate confrontations. You immediately shut down and stop saying what you feel. So what are you considering confrontation? So when you hear the word confrontation, for those of you that are saying that you don't like confrontation, what are you considering confrontation? Like, is it any type of disagreement? Is it the yelling, the screaming, the aggression? Like, what part of confrontation are you guys saying that you dislike? Hey, Divine. Yep, that's enough. Yeah, don't yell at me. I'm not your child. What? First of all, I don't even understand the word no. And then you're going to yell on top of that? Oh, I need you to use your big boy, your words, or big girl voice, your adult words. We can have a conversation. And if you can't talk to me without yelling, that means we need to take a break. Okay, so when the tune becomes aggressive, yelling and aggression. Okay, so that is okay. So that makes sense now when you guys are saying that you don't like the yelling and the screaming. I'm okay with that. Because I just don't want you guys to say that you don't like confrontation and then you avoid any conversation that makes you feel uncomfortable or any conversation where there is a difference of opinion, right? That's not being emotionally intelligent. So if you, for you that say that you don't like the screaming and the hollering, all of that, perfectly fine. Like I told y'all, I don't argue. Like I have had friends that I've had my entire life. My best friend, we've been friends when we were 1 year old, so 30, almost 36 years, have never had an argument. Have we had disagreements? Of course, we talk about it. But like when I be seeing like people cuss their friends out, oh my God, are you kidding me? I would cry. Absolutely not, right? And so I think part of the way that you avoid that is, one, you have to make sure that you are regulating your emotions so that you're not giving that energy, right? Because it's very difficult that when somebody comes at you yelling with the aggression and all of that, it's natural to want to reciprocate that energy, right? But you have to be self-aware enough to recognize when that is happening and recognize like, okay, we're not going to get anywhere. Like when you are yelling and screaming and all of that, right? That is when you are still consumed with your emotions. Like you guys remember the brain that I showed you guys and how it passes through your brain before, you get to the emotional part of your brain before the logical part of your brain. You guys remember that? Do y'all remember that? The emotional part of the brain versus the logical portion of the brain? Yes. Okay. Perfect. So when not even just you, but when somebody is yelling, screaming, cussing, or whatever, right? They are still in the emotional part of the brain, right? That's in the middle part of your brain. That is where your emotions are first triggered. That is where you are consumed by your emotions. That is a natural thing. You cannot stop those emotions from being triggered, right? But what you have to do is recognize when certain emotions are triggered, and you got to do what you need to do to self-regulate. If that means you need to step away, even if you feel like you got to shut down, right? Because sometimes it can seem so overwhelming, you can shut down, but you also need to communicate that I need a second. This is not working for me. Right? You gotta learn, so those in those moments. So, and also communicate to your partner, hey, and not when you're in those moments when you guys are, I tell you guys all the time, you have to have a conversation about how you communicate. Hey, I really don't like it when you raise your voice at me. Or I noticed that it triggered you when I did X, Y, and Z. What about that triggered you, right? You might have hit an emotional trigger that you don't know about. Hey, I noticed that triggered you. What about that, so I can avoid that landmine next time? Okay? So it's okay to not like the yelling and screaming and hollering, but a natural part of relationships, any relationship, is having those having those uncomfortable conversations. Okay, let me go back to some of you guys' comments. And so here's the other thing, right? Another tip that I would give you guys, for those of you that are single, when you are evaluating a potential partner, that needs to be one of the things that you are considering. How somebody handles conflict. Like that needs to be something that you experience with them before you agree to be exclusive, in my opinion. I need to see, like, because are you going to get angry and hit me? Are you going to get angry and yell at me? Right? I need to know these things before I can agree to be exclusive, right? Because how you handle conflict, and I think that is one one area that a lot of people overlook. You don't pay attention to how the person handles conflict. Even if they don't holler, scream, and yell, still pay attention to, do they take accountability? Do they avoid things? For those of you that are single, do not underestimate the value of seeing how somebody handles conflict. Even if it doesn't have anything to do with you, right? I didn't have anything to do with his car being told, but being able to watch how he handled that, something that he actually caused, it told me a lot. Right? So pay attention to how somebody handles conflict. And if it doesn't work for you, if you feel like, it depends on how long you guys have been talking, but you can communicate that, like, hey, isolating doesn't work for me. Shutting down doesn't work. I would prefer if you have a conversation with me. Right? You can communicate that, because everybody handles things differently. And so they may not know right away, like whoever he was talking to before, that might have been cool with her. It don't work for me. Right? So make sure that you are paying attention to that, how somebody handles conflict. Especially for those of you that say you fear rejection, or you fear that you're going to be misunderstood. Again, that's something else that you should be evaluating when you are getting to know somebody. Right? Do they take time to understand you? Even if you say, oh, I don't feel good. Oh, what's wrong? Right? There are signs that you guys should be looking for when you're getting to know somebody, to let you know whether or not you're going to feel misunderstood, whether or not they're going to take time to understand you, right? These are things that you can identify in somebody, and in my opinion, should be deal breakers for you. Now, if you are already in a relationship with somebody, right, and you recognize that this is something that they do, that's when you have to learn how to have a conversation about it. Hey, babe, can we have a conversation? Like, again, not when you're in the moment, not when you're heated, not when you are, at each other's neck. When y'all in a good space, when y'all have a good night, when y'all having pillow talk. Hey, babe, can I ask you a favor? When you yell at me, it really makes me feel. Can we agree that if we get too upset or aggressive, that we could take a break? Right, y'all have to ask for what you want, because if somebody is yelling at you every time they're upset, but you don't correct, you just shut down, they might not know that you don't like it. Like, they may not, that was your downfall. You said you don't find out how people handle conflict until it's too late. Yeah, that's a big thing for me. Like, if you're not willing to take accountability, it's a deal breaker for me. Like, I'm not even gonna waste my time. Like, him not paying his tickets would have made me realize, what else don't you take serious? What other responsibilities do you neglect? Because that could be an issue in the future, right? Let me see. Hey, nephew. Let me go back. How do you understand their communication? Listen to them. Listen to how they communicate with you. Right? When you share something with them, like, oh, my day was so crazy, do they ask about it? Do they ask follow-up questions? Do they take time to see, what's going on? When you express an issue, oh, this is what happened to me, do they try to help you? How do they just talk to you regularly? Right? A lot of people communicate in a way that they want to be talked to. Just like how people, I don't know if you guys recognize, but in the beginning, most people speak their own love language and not their partner's love language. It's the same thing with communication. People speak in the way that they most likely want to be spoken to. Right? I gave you guys this example before, where the guy that I was dating, every time that he would say like something was wrong, I jumped straight into what we're going to do about it, right? Problem solving. Until he told me, I don't always need you to help. I just want to hear, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And I thought about it, because every time I share something with him, that's his response. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I don't care about that. That doesn't do anything for me. Help me brainstorm, be my sounding board, right? But it wasn't until he communicated that to me, that that's not what he wants, that I didn't recognize and it would irk me when I would go and share all this stuff. And your response is, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. But because that's what he wants in those moments. So that is how you understand somebody's communication. And you just have to pay attention. Not you colorblind to red flags. They look pink and you love pink. So, so this is like kind of this is a side note, but about red flags. Because I feel like a lot of people, I think a lot of people are colorblind, if I'm honest. Right? I think some people consider red flags pink and pink flags red. Like, for me, my rule of thumb is if it is going to, one, compromise like your core values or your morals, or if it is going to have a negative impact on the quality of your relationship. Right? And then the other part of that is, do you have enough evidence? Right? I think a flag could be pink if you don't have enough to confirm that that's a thing. Right? I remember I had a client one time, and she was dating this guy, and he had to go out of town, and he just so happened to have to go to the state where his kids lived. And she asked him if he was going to see his kids, and he said no. When we had our session, she was like, oh, that means he don't take care of his kids. I don't know, because he's not. I said, did you ask why he wasn't going to see his kids this trip? She went back and asked him. She texted me later like, oh, his kid's not home. Like, they were on, like, with their aunt or something. I said, see, you was getting ready to cancel him, assuming that he's not a good father because he didn't see his kids this trip when they're not even there, right? So that could have been a pink flag. Like, I'm not saying ignore it. Flags can be pink until you have enough tangible, I don't want to say evidence, this is not law, but you know what I mean? Like, until you have enough to make that decision. But we're going to work on the pink flags versus red flags. Not you more than colorblind, you blind. No, we're going to work on this, y'all. We're going to work on this. We're going to do better. Yes, proof is a better word. And make sure that it's tangible things. We're going to get back to that in a little bit. See, no, pink flags shouldn't only turn red when you get tired of it. Like, once you realize that this is something that is going to affect the quality of your relationship, right? So somebody that does not take accountability is going to be a headache. Anytime we have an issue, you want, like, that. For me, I'm not willing to deal with that, right? And it also comes down to that, like, things that you are willing to deal with, right? There are some things that I have the patience for. There are other things that I do not. And I'm honest about that with myself. I don't go and tell people, right? So you have to understand the things that you can, and don't lie to yourself. Like, don't lie to yourself. Like, this person been the same way since the beginning. Now, and so, well, I won't say that because you are allowed to change, but don't think somebody's going to change. If it get on your nerves in day 1, you think it's not going to get on your nerves in day 100, 10,000 and whatever. Hey, the dark one. We listen and we don't judge. Yeah, we definitely don't judge around here. All we can do is we recognize, we're going to do better. Okay, so the other reason why we struggle to communicate our needs, you guys already said this. We have messages from our childhood that has taught us to suppress or minimize our needs. All right, so if our needs were not met as children, right, we learn how to live without it. Right, we learn to adapt, we learn to adjust. And so if we were neglected might be a strong word, but if there was any type of way where we felt like our needs were not met as children, and I think a big one for like our generation that we are overcoming is, like, I think a lot of our emotional needs were not met. And by without our emotional needs met, right, there's a lot that we didn't learn. Right? Especially if your parents cussed you out, gave you a beating, but never apologized to you. You learn that you don't need an apology. You just sweep things under the rug and keep it moving. But that may not be true. You may need an apology. I'm probably going to help you. All right. So I think emotional needs is something that a lot of went unaddressed for many of us. You're recovering from Delulu land. That's good. I'm happy to hear that. You're not the only one, sis. Right? And so there, and it can be different for everybody, like it's like different needs. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something intentional or something cruel. I remember, and this is like from when I was like in like 6th grade. Like I came home and I told mom, like, oh, I got a boyfriend. And her response, you don't need no boyfriend. Why da. I have never told my mom anything else about my personal life ever again. And that was like in the 6th grade. I'll be 37 this year. And still, because I did not get the response that made me feel like it was welcoming or like I could. And that was, how old are you in the 6th grade? 12? 11? All right, so I just don't. I've had to learn when is it safe to talk to people and what makes me feel more comfortable. But again, that taught me, don't talk. Epiphany unlocked. I like to hear that, Faye. And I'm glad that you learned that, you never received the apology growing up and now you're big on it. That's good, right? That also can happen. We're going to get to that, Brianna. I'll answer that question, I think, in a couple of, if not, I'll definitely come back to it. Okay, we talked about why we struggle to communicate our needs, right? We talked about the fear of being a burden or sounding needy. We talked about feeling guilty around having needs, especially for moms. Avoidance of conflict or fear of rejection or fear of being misunderstood. And then things that we were taught in our childhood, of our experiences in childhood to teach us to suppress our need or minimize our needs. So let's talk about the emotional barriers. So those are the reasons, but what does that mean like emotionally for us? One reason that we don't communicate is I shouldn't need this. I shouldn't need help. I should be able to handle everything myself. I shouldn't have to ask for help. Right? So there is a guilt sometimes that prevents us from asking or communicating our needs. Some of you guys mentioned this one. There's a fear that stops us from communicating. What if they don't care? What if they're not going to do anything to help meet my needs? Right? And now I've been vulnerable. I've expressed it and it's just out there because, right? And so instead of being disappointed, I'm just not going to say anything. Sometimes it could be shame. I'm asking for too much. Or somebody else asked me this, like, what if there's a pattern? So if there has been a pattern that could make you feel hopeless, they never listen anyway. They're not going to do anything anyway. They never acknowledge what I say. All right. So there could be guilt where you feel like you shouldn't need, right? You shouldn't need help. You shouldn't feel overwhelmed. There could be a fear. They don't care anyway. And that fear of they don't care, that might not even come from the person that you were afraid to ask. It could be something that you're projecting in the past. But if this is your person, hopefully that is not true and they do care. Shame, I'm asking for too much. You're not. If this is something that you realize that you need it. Or you could feel hopeless. If there's been a pattern, you could feel like they never listen anyway. What's the point? Yeah, a lot of things I've experienced. I would love to have a conversation with my mom, but she always gave her opinion and told me what I needed to do rather than just listen. I think that's a lot of people's experience. And so it's when you have learned to stifle yourself for a parent. Or even if, let's say you had a sibling that needed more attention than you. Maybe they have special needs, or maybe they had behavioral problems, or, something that maybe they couldn't even control. But maybe you had a sibling that, required more attention from your caregiver. That can also make you feel like your needs are not a priority. So what you need to do is, for those of you that overthink, right? For those of you that feel like, oh, well, I don't know if I should bring it up. Should I? They're not going to care. How do I know if I should say something, right? What I really want you to work on is validating your own emotions, right? You have to be the first person to say to you, it's okay that I feel this way. So many times people reach out to me and the first thing they say out their mouth is, am I wrong for feeling like, and before they even finish, you're never wrong for what emotions you are experiencing. Right? So that's the first thing. Like, if you feel like you struggle to speak up for yourself, you have to understand that it's okay. You have a right to feel how you feel. And if I'm honest, that is something that I used to have to communicate. Like, I used to repeat it to myself. Like, when I used to try to dismiss my own emotions, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or I'm probably about to overreact, or I'll get over it. Like, stop crying. Like, you cool. No, I have a right to feel this way. Like, and I used to have to literally repeat it to myself. I have a right to feel this way. Right? So that's the first thing. So recognize that you have a right to feel this way. And I would say, don't overthink it. Right? If you're like, should I bring something up? Should I not? Don't overthink it. Don't ruminate in that. Process what it is that you are feeling, right? We've been talking about processing your emotions many classes ago. We talked about this multiple times. Right? Don't just sweep things under the rug, right? Somebody just asked me, like, how do you stop sweeping things under the rug, right? One, acknowledge that you are experiencing certain emotions. Acknowledge that it is okay for you to experience these emotions, right? Then the next part is understand what it is that these emotions are trying to tell you. How do you start ruminating? You have to understand what these emotions are trying to tell you, right? Emotions are messengers, right? They're trying to tell you something, right? If you're sad, maybe they're trying to tell you that a boundary has been crossed, that you have an unmet need. Like, they're trying to tell you something. You have to pay attention. Like, even if we were working one-on-one, I would never tell you what to do. You have to listen to your emotions. Your emotions are like your GPS. It's your compass. You just have to make sure that you're listening. It's like discernment, sort of, kind of. But you have to understand what your emotions are trying to tell you. All right? Are they telling you? So once you recognize what the issue is, okay, has the boundary been crossed? right? Are you angry? Why? What are you angry about, right? And again, you guys can go back and watch the class about how to process your emotions. We talked about this. When you realize what the trigger is and you realize what emotion it has triggered and why, right? The next thing we ask, is it a me, them, or us issue? Is it something that I need to work on? Is it something that I need them to work on? Something that we both need to do differently, right? And so also ask, like, what do you need for this issue to go away for you? Right? A lot of people have the same arguments over and over again because you don't ever address the real problem. Sweeping stuff under the rug, it doesn't. Now think about that. Sweeping things under the rug. I know it's a metaphor, but think about if you were to actually sweep things under the rug. And some of these issues that we are talking about, sweeping under the rug, it's not just like little pebbles of dirt. Some of us got big rocks that we've been carrying around in our pockets, weighing us down. And we just sweeping it under the rug. A rug is not but so big. What happens if you keep putting rocks under a rug? You're not going to be able to walk over that rug. You're going to stub your toe. Trip, fall, hit your face. Now your lip is bleeding. Right? Sweeping things under the rug does not do anything. Right? And what do I need for this issue to go away? It could be a me thing, right? And this is something that I need to work on, right? Be honest with yourself. How do you know if you're sweeping things under the rug? Do you address them? Right? And it doesn't, and this is what I'm saying. Sometimes it's not always something that you need to address with somebody else. It may be something you need to address with yourself. If this is a you problem, right? Everything is not objective. Sometimes it's a you thing. Let's say, right, we talked about emotional triggers, right? So let's say your partner triggers something for you. It might be something that you got to grow through. Your partner may did something totally, quote unquote, normal. Something objectively that would not bother somebody else, but subjectively it bothers you. Is it something that you have to work on? Right? If you are coming into a relationship with insecurities, with baggage that you have not, worked through completely. If your partner does something to trigger that insecurity, unbeknownst to them, is there something that you need to work on? Right? And so you're sweeping things under the rug if you do not come to a resolution about it. How do you solve this issue? First, you got to make sure you're identifying the correct issue. Because a lot of times we fight about things that don't really matter. But once you get to the correct issue, what do you need to happen for this to go away, for this to no longer be an issue for you? What needs to happen? And if whatever you come up with, if you can do that on your own, do it. If it's something that you also need the other person to do, communicate that. Okay? But you have to validate your own emotions first. I think the very first week, the reflection question was, if you had a judgment-free space, like what emotion would you allow yourself to feel? And so many people commented on how they don't allow themselves to experience certain emotions because they don't have a safe space. You have to be your first safe space. Right? They're your emotions. Even if somebody else triggered them for you, they're your responsibility. Right? Yeah, you said you would finally be vulnerable. Are you being vulnerable with yourself? Or are you talking about like with other people? Because there's a difference. Like, you got to be vulnerable with yourself first. Allow yourself the space and the grace. We keep talking about the same stuff. to experience certain emotions. Being honest with yourself about, hey, I messed up in this area. Hey, I'm the reason that I'm in this situation. And being honest with yourself about what you need to do to get out of it. And you got, again, I'm always saying, be honest with yourself. Right? And take accountability for the part that you play in things being the way that they are. Right? Whenever I work with somebody, I'm always going to talk about you. Like I have people, oh, my husband did, but I want to talk about you and the part that you play in this, because you cannot change anybody else. You only have control over you. And so always, 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 I am going to tell you, take accountability for the part that you play in it. Only your part. Now, some people go overboard and want to start trying to compensate for other people's stuff, and you cannot do that. But being accountable for the part that you play in whatever the situation is, that's when you start to grow, right? In terms of being vulnerable, that starts with you, right? You may not have somebody else that you could be vulnerable with, right? You can't be vulnerable with everybody else, right? You have to make sure that person is a safe space. Cool. But at least give yourself the space and grace. Get yourself a journal. Get a therapist. I don't care if you write everything down on a piece of paper and then throw it in the trash. But you have to learn how to validate your own emotions. You have to learn how to give yourself the space and the grace to experience your emotions. So you said you're vulnerable with yourself, but not with other people so much. And so my question is, are these people a safe space? Because if you only have people in your life they're not empathetic, right? They always share their opinion. They project their fear on you. I understand why you're not vulnerable. Now, if somebody is a safe space and you still don't open up, then you need to explore why not. Exactly. This is something that I learned last year. Take accountability for the part you play. Absolutely. You guys know I always use me as an example. The guy that I thought I was going to get married to by 30. Well, I know him at 25. But when I gave God an extra 5 years to be married by 30, that guy, and then I ended up single like 7 months before my 30th birthday. So him, right? I was the one that said I didn't want to put titles on things. I just assumed that as we continue, both of us had changed. And you know what? He asked me indirectly, and looking back, my response was like, what? Titles? No, I don't care. Da, 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 da. So I am the reason that we did not have official titles. And then I did not communicate when I started to feel differently. I just assumed we were on the same page. And so when he popped up like, I'm cool on this, I'm going to go over here and get married on your birthday, right? My friends were upset, like, oh, well, he led you on, da 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 da. But the only part I could take accountability for is that I did not communicate when things changed for me. I was the one that said I didn't want, and then never communicated when things changed in my intentions and my desire, right? That's not to take away from what he did. That's not to excuse his behavior, but I can't do anything about it. And by taking accountability for the part I play, I bet you I won't make that mistake again. Right? So accountability is how you learn, right? It's very easy to point, he did this, she did this, they did that. But when you do that, when you only point the fingers, you don't grow. Right? If I had only focused on the fact that I feel like he let me on, we were playing house pretty much, and then just up and left, like I would still be stuck on him. But there's nothing I can do to change how he made his decision. We ain't never had an argument. We never had a fight. Like, right? But I can't. TikTok is being. What? Detect the inactivity. I'm here. All right, so you got to take accountability for the part you play. Okay. And so before I move on to the next thing. Yeah, on my birthday. Crazy, right? I would love for everybody to have at least one person in their life that is a safe space, but we have to be honest. You know what's so crazy? I was actually looking at this earlier today. In one of the Facebook groups I'm in, it was like share a hard truth. And so I put down there, like, relationships are optional. People treat you how you want to be treated, or treat you how you allow them to be treated. And so I'm just scrolling through and seeing what other people were putting. And like people were writing like, nobody cares. Nobody is a safe space. It doesn't matter how much you share. Like nobody's going to meet your needs. And I'm like, that is sad. I got a lot of people that care about me. All right. But people like that's their truth, that nobody cares about them. And that is extremely unfortunate. One person said like, there's no such thing as a real sisterhood. Speak for yourself. Because me and my friends, we locked in for life. All right. So I would love for somebody to have a safe space. But unfortunately, I don't think that is everybody's reality. And so what do you do when you don't have that? Right? You can't be dependent on somebody else to give you something. Right? When you are depending on somebody else to give you something and they don't give it to you, what you gonna do? I used to think that my partner was supposed to make me happy. And so when he broke up with me, I'm like, so you just not gonna be happy again until you get another man? That's real crazy, sis. And that's when I had to start rethinking things. You're worried that you're adding to her current load. Like when you mean like if you go and share what you need or whatever, you're afraid of adding to that person. Is that what you're saying? Like we talked about being a burden. Is that what you're saying, Faye? So while you answer that, so let's go on to the next one. So for those of you, like you're saying, like, how do I know if I should bring something up, right? How do I stop myself from ruminating in my own thoughts or, putting my own spin on things? And I mentioned this already, like, ask yourself, once you've processed your emotions and you've figured out what the issue is, what's the solution? And whatever that solution is, do you need the person to do something differently moving forward? If you need somebody else to do something differently moving forward, you can't sweep that under the rug. People are not mind readers. Like, they're not. Is what part trying to change? If you need them to do something differently. So I think it depends on what it is. I think it depends on what it is you're asking them to do differently. Are you asking them to do something that is against their morals or their core values? Right? Let's say I want a baby and he doesn't. I'm asking him to change that. Yeah, that's trying to change him. That's crazy. If it is, I don't like the way he talks to me, I don't like the way he raises his voice, I don't think that is trying to change somebody. I think that is about growth and, meeting your partner's needs. And they can say no. They can say no. I have said no. Right? If I meet somebody and they have an anxious attachment style and they need to be confirmed, affirmed constantly, that is not something that I am willing to do. Right? I'll make sure you feel secure. I would do, but excessively, it's not something that I'm, me. Right? So, maybe you are asking them to change and it's up to them to say yes or no. But if this is something that you feel like you need, hey, I need you to change your tone when you talk to me. Hey, I just need you to validate how I'm feeling. Hey, I just need a hug. Hey, I just need you to rub my butt. They can say yes or no. And then from there, it's up to me to decide, okay, so that means you can't give me what I need. I told y'all this before too, right? When I had just started therapy and the guy I was dating, I asked him, like, can you give me what I need? And at that point, I was learning that it was okay to cry. He said, what do you need? I said, sometimes I just need to cry. And he said, I'm not going to let you cry. It's a sign of weakness. What? At first, I thought he was joking. He was serious. He said, you're not going to let me cry. Which he has a right to say no. And then it's up to me to decide that that's not what I want from my person. You're welcome. Okay? So, again, before you bring something up, determine what is the point of going to talk to this person. What outcome are you hoping for? Like, some people just go and y'all just want to yell and cuss somebody out. What's the point of this conversation? Like, and if you're dealing with somebody like me that got ADHD, you got to tell me the point up front. Like, you need me to be your sounding board. You got a problem with something I did. Like, you need me to ask questions. I need to know, am I asking questions? Am I trying to understand? Am I just listening? Like, you got to tell me what you need from me up front. You just need to get this off your chest. Like, why are you telling me this? And that sounds harsh, but that's what you need to ask yourself before you go and talk to somebody. What's the point of this conversation? Right? And that's something that I typically ask people when I'm working with them, because that also dictates the language that you use. Right? Because if it's a situation where you are hoping that your person does something different, going to them and using conclusory statements like, you don't do this, I don't like that, period. And this, you didn't open the door for conversation. You didn't. Right? And so understanding what you're hoping to get out of this is going to dictate the language that you use. It's also going to dictate what you say, because everything does not need to be said. Just because it's true doesn't mean it needs to be said. I have to tell people that all the time. What's the point of sharing this? Like, why are you sharing this? Are you saying this just to hit somebody below the belt? Like, just because it's true does not mean it needs to be said. All right, you got to think about what's the overall goal. Right? If you are really hoping to work through this and move on together, bringing up every single thing that they did wrong is probably not going to help. What's the big picture? You don't need to go through, you ain't do this, you ain't do that, you ain't do that. Well, dang, do you like me at all? All right, so just because it's true doesn't mean it needs to be said. You have to also think about the impact of the things that you say. Right? The first example I said was something that you say and you really is saying it to hit below the belt. Right? That's the impact of sharing, in the middle of an argument, saying something, or listing out everything that somebody did wrong, right? The impact of it is making them feel like, damn, do you even like me? A feeling of insecurity. Yes, intent versus impact. Absolutely. You have to understand the gravity of your words and the things that you say. And so tonight we're talking about communicating, right? And communication. And before you go and bring something up to somebody, I was saying that you need to understand, why are you bringing this up? What is your desired outcome? and everything that is true does not need to be said. If it is something that is going to be detrimental to the overall goal, you might want to reconsider if you want to share that or say that. Right? I was just using cheating as an example. The other example I gave was saying something that is hitting below the belt. I don't say maybe. So it's going to be different for every person. Does he have to be self-aware to know that he won't cheat again? I can't say, because people cheat for different reasons. They have to be, I mean, I guess you have to be self-aware enough to understand why you really, why you did it. Yeah. Okay, so what we were talking about, before you bring something up, ask yourself, is this something that you need the other person to do differently moving forward? Right? What outcome are you hoping for? Why are you bringing this up? Right? And then when you are going to go talk to somebody, right? We talked about this in the beginning, making sure you have enough proof, right? This is not a feeling, right? We talked about the difference between facts and feelings, right? In terms of feelings being how you interpret a situation versus your emotions or, the things that you are experiencing. And so, right, feelings are not facts. That's how you interpret a situation. And so if you're going to go and talk to somebody about something, and making sure that, you have tangible things that you can point to help them understand, right? Because hopefully they say, can you help me understand? Can you give me an example? And you can give them an example of why, what the issue is and why you are feeling the same, the way that you are feeling. Yeah, that got y'all thrown off. So we've talked about this before in terms of how do you communicate your needs to your person, right? And I give this sentence to y'all almost every week. Start your sentences with I. Focus on the emotion, right? Talk about how it made you feel, not the action. Right? And also make sure that you are being specific. So I felt overwhelmed when you didn't help me clean up on Saturday after our guests left. Right? And then we talk about the action. Moving forward, can you make sure I don't need help before you go to bed? Right? And when you also focus on these rules or, use these, these tips, it also helps to de-escalate arguments, right? If I'm just telling you explicitly, hey, this is how I felt when you did this, next time, this is what I need to be different, it's not really much that they can do to argue with you at that moment. Got it? Y'all see what I'm saying? So use the I feel when I felt, or this is how I feel when you do this. All right. How does that impact you? And then focus on what you need to be differently. All right. Let's see. What else we got? If your partner is sharing with you things that they need, don't automatically assume that if they share something about you or, that doesn't mean that you are a failure. Right? It could be an area of growth, yeah, or right, it could be unintentional. But don't assume, don't internalize it like, oh, I'm a failure. I'm just the worst girlfriend, wife, sister ever. Don't internalize it. Like, take it for what it is. Ask questions. If somebody says you did something or they didn't like it, well, what would you have liked me to do differently? That's my favorite question. What would you like me to do differently? Or how can I, because you got to tell me what you need, and vice versa. And make sure that you are reflecting before you respond. They might be right. You probably did do it. Right? Don't automatically jump to being defensive, right? We talked about that last week in terms of being defensive. Don't do that. Thea, are you saying you have a question? So, summary of this week's class. Your needs, they're not a weakness. It doesn't make you needy. It doesn't make you a burden, or at least it shouldn't. Right? You can express your needs without feeling guilty or blaming the person. Right? Focus on how you feel. Focus on what you need. And also recognize that what you need matters, and so does your partner's. Right? And if I had sent y'all the email, the reflection question would have been, what makes it hard for you to communicate your needs? But we talked about that in the beginning. Any questions for me? If you guys joined late, there were only one announcement. I am looking for a virtual assistant. So if you know a virtual assistant, if you are a virtual assistant, if you want to become a virtual assistant, please either send me a message or an email, and I could send you the job description. That's that. Also, the membership community is also open. I've been telling you guys before that after April, the price is going up for the membership community. And we are doing a self-aware summer. So we're going to, when this class is over, it'll just be strictly the membership community. I am not teaching in the summer semester. They sent me an email like, welcome to the summer semester at Hillman Talk University. I'm not doing this again for the summertime. This is a whole lot. So yeah, once this class is over, whatever that week of May 30th is, I'm not exactly sure how often. Let me see what date. May 29th will be the last class. And then after that, it will strictly be in the membership community. We meet weekly, and then we have 2 guided sessions a month. This is where we dive deeper. Right here, you guys can only type but so much, but this will be via Zoom. I get all in your business and step all on your toes in the membership community. So I would love to see you in the membership community. Am I coming back in the fall? I'm not sure. I'll see. Showing up every week is a lot, like with actual like lesson plans and stuff, is a lot of work. If I can get a virtual assistant, maybe I might have the capacity to come back. But if it's, I don't know when I will be doing this again. I would just hope that you guys would come and join me in the membership community. I think it's worth it. You guys can, pick my brain. We could talk. This is when I ask, we get the real feedback in the membership community. The other announcement I didn't tell you. So you're welcome for class. There will be no class next week. I have a wedding to go to on a random Thursday. So I will be at a wedding next week. So there won't be any class next week. And then I think the week after that, I want to talk about attachment styles. And so how you build relationships now is built on your relationship with your caregiver in your first few years of your life. And so we're going to talk about that and how that impacts your communication and how you may have different communication styles based on your attachment style. Okay, so we have a question. Since impact was mentioned, is it bad to tell someone that they are a bad lover sexually? So again, remember we were just talking about intent versus impact. What is the intent of having this conversation? Let me ask you that first. What would be the intent of bringing up that you're not satisfied sexually? Tell me, anybody can answer. So what's the intent? What's the intent of bringing up the persons that you're not satisfied sexually? Like, what's the point of this? Why are you bringing up this topic? Why do you want to bring it to their attention, Thea? What is the overall goal of this conversation? If you want to go have this conversation with your person, what's the goal that you're hoping to accomplish? So, all right. So, okay. So let's back up. You are saying that you're not satisfied sexually because of the lack of emotional connection? Because that sounds like two different things. Okay, so then see now, so this is the thing about issue spotting. So if you would have gone and talked to your person, so you just said that, how do you tell somebody that you're not satisfied sexually? And I said, what's the point of the conversation? And you said to tell them that you don't feel emotionally connected. See how those are two different things? If you'd have gone and said, hey, you're not hitting it right, it don't feel good, I don't feel nothing, how would they have ever gotten you to the conversation about emotional connection? You see what I'm saying? All right. Now, those two things can be true, right? You can be unsatisfied and disconnected emotionally, but you have to make sure that you are addressing the issue that you want. Now, I did see other people say, like, you will bring up this conversation with the hopes that they are going to improve. Cool. What does that? If I come and say, you're not hitting it right, your head is trash, you're not laying the pipe right, does that help you get to where you want to be? Or if I say, hey babe, can we try this? Can you do this? Can we do that? You know what I mean? So, and this is another example of intent versus impact, right? You're not necessarily going to say, you're trash, you like, I can't stand it, I don't ever finish, I be faking. That's not what, those things are true. But just because it's true doesn't mean it needs to be said. Instead, it is better to focus on, hey, can we do this instead? Can we try this? What about this? You can even say, I don't like when you do that. The person is not open to trying the things that you say you want and you need. Hurting their feelings isn't productive. That's true, Simone. Right? Like, you got, like, so this is the point that I was trying to share earlier, right? Focus on the goal. What is it that you need to be different? They're not open to trying new things, then I think that may be a boundary of theirs. That's a limitation. And then you decide, okay, this person is not willing to try new things. What do you do about it? Are you okay with that? Right? That is something that you guys disagree about. What do you do? Where's the compromise, if at all? I felt like there was another question. All right. And so yeah. Let me know if that makes sense. All right, so if the goal is to improve the intent, focus on that. Tell me what you do need. Don't tell me what I'm not doing right. Unless it's something like, hey, I don't like that. Cool. Instead of tearing them down, you don't do this, this is trash, I'm faking. That's not a productive, a positive conversation. You can even spice it up. Oh, can we try to send videos? I want you to do this to me. Now, if we're talking about the emotional connection piece that you're talking about, right, then you need to talk about that. Or just do things so that you guys can connect emotionally. Hey, I feel like we need to sit down and talk more. Right? Some people, right, that's another good point. Somebody in the membership community said, or you could just guide them, like when you're in the act. Put them where you want them. Or you take control and show them. Once they see your reaction, clearly they like this. Right? Communication is not always about the direct, the blunt words that you say. You can spice it up. Right? Same thing goes with right? Let's say you've been on a date, you want to go on another date. Instead of when you taking me out or I haven't heard from you, I would love to see your face. All right? It's all about the way. Maybe I need to do a class on that, like in terms of choosing your words. Yeah, choosing your words. Is that something that y'all would be interested in? I have a whole lot of tips on that. Like, and also like, don't kneecap your words. That should have been on here. If I didn't put that on here. I would put that. So if you are going to have a serious conversation, don't kneecap your words. I was just wondering, do you feel like you're not just wondering? Say what you say. I was just wondering if you could. Do you feel like, no, can you do this? Right? Let's talk about assertive communication. Like, if you feel like it, can you? I don't care if I feel like it or not. Ask them to do it. Can you do this? And you don't got to say it like, with an attitude. Like that guy used to say, like, you feel like doing this for me? It's not about if I feel like, because I don't feel like it, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. You're welcome. So kneecapping is, don't put like limitations on your sentences. I was just wondering if I was starting to feel like, I was kind of feeling like, no, you feel like that. I was kind of feeling sad when you canceled on me. No, I was disappointed. When you kneecap it, it minimizes what you are experiencing. It downplays it. I wasn't kind of sad. I'm sad. I was sad. And when you kneecap, it's teaching the other person that what you are feeling is not that important. I feel like I saw another question. What if you can't stand on business when setting boundaries? You have to ask yourself why you don't stand on business. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid that person is not going to respect your boundary? Are you afraid that person is not going to be in your life? If that person is not going to be in your life because of your boundaries, they probably don't deserve to be in your life. So you have to understand why you don't stand on business. Why do you fold so easily? Boundaries are in place for you, not the other person. And so if you tell somebody, hey, this is a hard no for me, and you allow them to do it, you lost your self-respect. They are not going to respect you. So that's something that you have to ask yourself. There was another question. Sorry, guys, you asked for my email again. If you guys want to reach out about the virtual assistant position, info@aaronfdarton.com. So like my handle. Was there another question? Okay, I think I got. Okay, so any other questions? You learned that lesson last year? Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yeah, you might need to go and apologize and just, be honest, right? I apologize. That might not have been the best way to, explain it. That may not have been the best way to share it. Right? Here's the other thing, right? If you do share something with somebody and let's say you miss it, right? I get it, right? I am a more direct communicator. Also, right, being an attorney, they tell you not to talk with a bunch of fluff. So it's very direct a lot of times when I talk. And I have to read it back and add, fluffy language to make it sound nicer and not as strong. But sometimes I still hit the mark, right? There are times where I practice, because most of the time I practice before I go and talk to somebody. I actually have a friend like, how to sound. So there are times where I absolutely practice and they still be like, well, damn. And I be like, God. And that was the nicest way I could come up with it. Sometimes you're just not always going to hit the mark. And so sometimes I've had to ask, how could I have said that better to you? Yeah, how can I have said that better? One thing for me, I know that I have to, depending on who I'm talking to, I have to add the fluffy language. Yeah, you full direct, but that's not everybody's communication style. So you have to make sure that you are speaking in a way that the person can receive it, right? Any tips for improving emotional connection in early dating? I would say don't be afraid to have deeper conversations. Really take the time to understand somebody. How were you raised? Um, I don't have a deck of cards up here, so I have like a deck of cards like with questions to help you with stuff like this. But off the top of my head, I would ask questions like, do you plan on or do you raise your children the same way that you were raised? Right? It gives you insight into how they were raised and how they feel about that. What's your relationship with your parents? What's your relationship with your co-parents? If you had to pick 3 to 5, like major, like if they was making a movie about your life, pick 3 to 5 major scenes, or what's 3 to 5 big lessons that you've learned over life. Like, don't be afraid to ask those deeper connections, those deeper questions, and make sure you really take time to understand them. Ask the follow-up questions. Make sure that you are providing a safe space. Thank them when they share, things that may not be easy for them to share. Yeah, you're late. This is actually the end of class. How do you apologize for things that happened months ago? Just, hey, can we have a conversation? I've realized I've been in this class, or I was talking to a friend or whatever. I realized that when this happened, that may not have been the best way for me to handle it. I apologize. I want to do better. I'm working on it. How is there anything in particular I could have done differently? How would you have liked? That's one of my favorite questions. How would you have liked me to handle it differently? I had a guy upset with me because I didn't invite him to my wine club, like hang out for my wine club that you're not a member of. And like he was like big mad. And how would you have liked me to handle it differently? He said, I don't know. Oh, I don't know either. I can't change anything that you're not willing to communicate with me. And I'm not a mind reader. Sometimes I will have suggestions on things I could do, but that one, right? And here's the other thing. Like when you ask those follow-up questions, if it is something that is unreasonable or it's a them thing, asking those types of questions also does the same thing. Like I didn't have to tell him that he was being ridiculous. You're upset because I did not invite you to my wine club, like the outing that we had. Oh, okay. So it's all about how you communicate things. Oh, thank you. Any other questions before we get out of here? Remember, there is no class next week, but we'll be back the week after that. How many more classes do we have? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more classes. So I'll do the one on like picking. We'll do attachment styles. We'll do one on boundaries. We'll do one for parents. We'll do one on picking your language. That's 4. I want to do one for men. I don't know if they're going to show up. Emotional intelligence for men. But you can also make sure that you are a safe space for men. So I might still do that one. And then I'll have to think of one more class. Oh, you hear? Perfect. So yeah. And I'll think of one more class. Any other questions before we get out of here? Just remember that this is a journey, right? You're not going to change or grow overnight. I'm proud of you all for being here. I'm proud of you for showing up. This is what, week 10? And I appreciate you for showing up. I am proud of you guys for being here and being willing to learn and grow. I love what I do. I think that emotional intelligence is a key component to life in general, not even just relationships. I think one, for yourself in terms of raising your self-awareness, because if you don't know about you, life is going to be difficult. So I'm proud of you guys for showing up week after week. I'm proud of me for showing up week after week, because this, showing up every week with a lesson plan is not easy in addition to everything else I do. But I promise to show up for y'all, so I'm going to continue to show up. We have 6 more classes. Again, no class next week. And then we'll be back the week after that. Again, if you're a virtual assistant, please let me know. If you want to join the membership community, if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, the link is in my bio. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks or in social media. All my classes helped you a lot in your journey. That warms my heart. Good night, guys.